Hey, welcome to Fitzdog Radio. As you can see, I'm just back from Chicago. I got my Den Theater sweatshirt, my Den Theater hat. Had a blast in Chicago. Oh, by the way, I just almost sneezed. You ever get the sneeze and it's coming and you start to get excited because you know about that orgasmic release that happens in your face and your body, and then it starts to fade, and so you look for the light and you squint, you put your head back and you inhale and it fucking fades away. And if you're a man, you know that feeling. That's that orgasm that slips away. You're about to have it and you brace for it, and then it's fucking gone. And you got to chase it all over again. Maybe you're a young stud. You've never faced the fading orgasm, the fleeting cum shot. It's a bitch. It's a bitch because you're so close to paradise. And I get why people in the 1700s used snuff to make themselves sneeze. I enjoy the shit out of a good sneeze. Man, do I like that. And I used to have allergies growing up, so between jerking off and having allergies, I was a happy, happy teenager. Discovering masturbation as a teenager is life-changing. It really makes you feel like all the things you thought were important before don't mean shit. If I can be alone in my room with a sock and a Playboy, and sports doesn't matter, grades don't matter. That matters. Yes. Anyway, gross way to start a podcast. Welcome to Fitzdog Radio. I'm just back. Me and the wife went to Chicago. I did a big show at the Den Theater. And, well, I'll walk you through it. I'll walk you through the week. Got started a little bit late for the airport because I did Annie Letterman's new podcast. I'm her first guest on her new podcast. I forget what it's called. Annie World or something. And it was fun. She's a riot. She makes me laugh. And so I got home late. And then I forgot that it was rush hour on a Thursday. And our flight was at like 6:30. And all of a sudden it's 5. And I'm trying to get an Uber. Well, good luck getting an Uber at 5 o'clock in Los Angeles, California. The app literally said, go fuck yourself. It said, take the phone and stick it up your ass because you're not getting a car. So I called the taxi company, and they're like, yeah, it's going to be 45 minutes to 90 minutes. Now, I'm only 20 minutes from the airport, 15, 20 minutes. But now we got no way to get there. So we jump in the car, and we start driving. We're like, fuck it. We'll park in long-term parking. We'll take that stupid shuttle bus. So we start driving, and the traffic is bumper to bumper on Lincoln Boulevard until we get to Washington, where we realize Lincoln is closed. Police activity. A homeless guy lit himself on fire. So we have to take a right and go zigzagging through the marina with a bunch of other people, and I pulled a couple of, I went past the line of traffic and did a U-turn and then came back and made a right. Did that twice like a total douche. I think you get douche passes in your life where when you're really late for a big thing like flying to Chicago to see your son and do a show, and you're that late, you're allowed to be a douche twice a year. And that's it. Some people just, they think they have an unlimited douche pass. No, twice a year. So I used mine, and it took so long to get to the airport. First of all, we hadn't eaten dinner. The plan was we were getting to the airport a little early. We were going to get some food for the flight. And so now there's no time for that. Not only that, there's no time to park in long-term parking. So now we're relegated to short-term parking where they charge you up the ass. But the only way we're going to make it, at this point, we're running for the flight. We go up, and there's no spots in the lot. It is packed. We got to go all the way up to the top floor. Finally, dude pulls out. We jump in. We grab our bags, and we zip across. Get to airport security. My wife does not have TCA clearance. I do. So I'm like, let me just fly through. She's like, fuck you, you're staying with me. I was like, but I'll go get the food. She's like, we're staying together. That's what marriage is all about, failing together instead of one of you succeeding. And so we get through airport security, and we got no time. So we barely make our flight and eat dinner. Dinner was those like biscotti things, you know, those, here they are. These things. The Biscoff crackers that they give you on the flight. We just loaded up on those. I took some edibles and zoned out, watched Peaky Blinders, and ate crackers for 4.5 hours getting to Chicago. And what is it, 4 hours to Chicago maybe? And then we got in and got an Uber in Chicago. And got in late. So we get to our Airbnb. Now, the theater I'm working is giving me a buyout for whatever. It's a long fucking story, but we get an Airbnb. And so we get to it, and it looked lovely online. It's Parents' Weekend, so there's very few Airbnbs available or hotels in the north side of Chicago. Everything's booked up because there's like 3 different colleges having Parents' Weekend. So we get to our Airbnb, and it looked lovely. We pull up, and the cab pulls up to the Belmont subway station. And we're like, no, this is a subway station. And he's like, no, this is 941 Belmont Street. So we're like, well, what the fuck? So we get out, and literally there's one door leads to the subway, and the door connected to it, right next to it, leads to 941 Belmont Street, our Airbnb. We go in, we're like, man, this is fucking close to the subway. We go inside, we go up to the second floor, walk in the front door, and the place looks very nice. But what's a little strange is that the curtains are drawn and it seems a little dark. So I go, well, let me go, even though it's nighttime, let me go open up the curtains. I open up the curtains, and without exaggerating, and you can go to my Instagram feed and see exactly how close we were to the subway. Our balcony was about 2.5 feet from the subway platform of the Belmont station. It was literally right fucking there. Like, you could not open the curtains. It was insane. There were like a crowd of people, and when I opened the curtains, about a dozen people all stared at me like, who are you, and why are you staying at the subway stop? Why is your residence at a subway stop? And the trains come in, and there's announcements, you know, track number 5, delay, whatever. And so we're like, well, what are we going to do? So we just laughed about it. And the next day I shot a video just to put on Instagram about it. And if you watch the end of the video, there's this guy who was upset that I was shooting a video of the tracks because he was in the video. And he starts screaming at me and throwing gang signs. And he could have jumped onto the balcony. Literally, you could physically jump from the subway platform to my balcony. So I closed the door and locked it, and I closed the curtains because I was being threatened in my Airbnb from a gentleman on a subway platform. But it was fine. It was fine. It was like triple pane glass, and it actually was not that loud. So we got into town. What did we get in? Thursday night. So Friday night, the Sklar brothers were in town, and they were at the same theater, the Den Theater, which fucking rocks. Awesome theater. Sam Morril just did his new Netflix special at the Den Theater, and really cool people that own it. And so the Sklar brothers were there on Friday night, so they asked me to be a guest on their Dumbtown People podcast, which is with them and Dan Van Kirk, who's hilarious. And so we came down, and my son came, and it was a riot. We had a blast. And then after the show, we're talking to this guy who's like the biggest radio guy in Chicago, apparently. I'm forgetting his name. But he was very nice, and he met Owen, and Owen told him that he had a radio show at DePaul. And this guy gave him his number, and he said, call me up. We'll get you an internship at the radio station. So Owen was very excited. And this will get him some kind of a job. Who knows? It's, my dad did it. I do it. Maybe my son will go into radio. Some people's family business is a hardware store. Some people are doctors. We talk into microphones. That's what my family does. My brother has a tattoo of my father's old radio station, WNEW, of a microphone with the call letters on it on his arm. We're radio people. So we did a bunch of cool shit in Chicago, ran around. I mean, we've been there before, but it's a city where there's endless attractions, things to do. I fucking love Chicago. It's alive. It's a big city. It's got nice people, but there's pace. There's pace to it. And we went and we took the boat tour, which is an architecture tour through Chicago. And it's stunning. I'd been all around the city, but you got to get on a boat to really see it from the inside out. And we had the greatest tour guide. She was a volunteer, and she had a thing about mid-century modern. She hated mid-century modern buildings, and she kept pointing them out and shitting on them. She liked the old stuff. Like there was this one building that was built in like 1920s, and it was like 10 blocks long and 10 blocks wide and about 10 stories high. And it's just a fucking amazing big-ass building. But they shut it down because it was just filled with asbestos and mold. I think it was the post office at one point. It was the central post office. And it was abandoned. And then they spent like 7 years getting all the asbestos. They spent like $1 billion getting all the asbestos and mold out, and now it's got a bunch of big companies in it. We saw buildings that are, semicircular, and one of them is 50 stories high, and it's missing the 46th floor because the wind blows so hard it would have knocked the building over at the time they built it. So they created an empty floor as a vent for the wind to go through. It's amazing. It was so fucking cool. And it was like a cool fall day. We sat out on the deck and people were getting shit-faced. Went to the Museum of Science the next day. It's Science and Technology, which is a massive... I've been to a lot of Museum of Sciences before. There's one in San Francisco that's great. There's one in LA that's great. But this one might take the cake. It's got one exhibit is... a submarine. It's a German U-boat that is the size of half a football field. It's enormous. Maybe it's a whole football field. It's huge. And it was part of a fleet of U-boats that destroyed hundreds, if not thousands, of supply vessels that the U.S. was using to supply the troops during the Second World War. And so the Germans were changing the course of the war with these U-boats that were destroying our boats. And so so one of the ways to combat them was they showed all these videos of how they would find the U-boats using aerial spotters. They used planes, and then they would carpet bomb the ocean where they thought the U-boat was, and then they would wait like 2 or 3 minutes, and sometimes a U-boat would just float to the top, fucking destroyed. And then they decided to capture one because they wanted to get all of the technology. They wanted to know what we were up against and how these boats were navigating the waters. And so they decided to capture one. So this captain, who was from Chicago, set about finding a way to locate, and they shot it up with lower caliber artillery so that they could. And so they got a boat and they shot it up, and all the Germans jumped out. They abandoned, and then the Americans jumped on the boat as it was sinking, plugged the holes, figured out how to fucking drive it, and saved the boat. And it's incredible. And the information they garnered by doing that helped us figure out how to find other U-boats. Anyway, so they take the boat, and after the war, they were going to destroy the boat like as target practice. They were like, well, we don't need it. And then the Chicago said, no, we want it for our museum. We'll take it. So in 1945 or whatever, they fucking sailed this boat And I didn't realize that you could go from the Atlantic Ocean to Chicago in a boat. Did you know that? Did you know that you could go through, like, I don't know, like up in Canada, New Brunswick or whatever? You can sail through the Great Lakes and get to Chicago in a fucking boat. So they got this boat, this German submarine that they're navigating past Montreal, past Cleveland to Chicago. And then it sits in the dock in Chicago for like 50, 60 years. And it was like rusted out, and it was sitting there. And then they finally said, we gotta put this thing at the museum. And so I was like, how the fuck would they get this boat this big inside the museum? Well, then they show you a video. They excavated a huge hole in the ground, and then they got like 140 cranes, and they loaded this U-boat onto it, and they took it through the streets of Chicago, and then they got it to the hole, and they lowered it. And here, I looked up this little thing. It was 18 self-powered dollies, all right, not 140, guided by remote control, moving 1 inch per minute. The intricate transport of the boat was directed by Norsar Incorporated, an engineering, transport, and lifting company that specialized in moving barges. The U-505 was moved more than 1,000 feet over the course of several days and had to make several 90-degree turns. It was lowered 4 inches at a time into its new home, the exhibit space, which measures 75 by 300 feet and 42 feet deep. Yeah, 300 feet, so a football field. And so you walk in and you can go inside this sub. It's crazy. Anyway, so go see that museum if you get to Chicago. We had a lot of great meals. The food's amazing. Big ass breakfast. We were getting up late every day, so we were having like brunches. There's a Jewish deli called The Bagel that's fantastic up in Riverview. There was a Swedish pancake place we went to. Anyway, had a lot of fun. People in Chicago are fat. I'm sorry. You're big people. It was getting cold. It was in the 40s, and all these Chicago people are walking around in fucking T-shirts and shorts and flip-flops. Like, what the fuck? How many layers of insulation are you wearing under your skin, sir, madam? So anyway, I was nervous about Chicago because my son is there, and he was coming out with his roommates. And so, and I talked about this on the podcast, that I was really focused on putting a set together that wouldn't embarrass him and my wife, and his roommates and whatever. So I don't like to edit myself, so it was a very weird feeling. And so we did the show, and it was packed. We packed it out. I promoted it on Segura's podcast and Rogan's podcast. I made some videos and social media. I pumped it up. And it paid off. Thank you guys for coming out. I really appreciate it. It was an amazing crowd. Everybody was so supportive. And it was like all my worlds came together in this beautiful way. It was like, here's my family that I love sitting in the audience, and this crowd of people watching me do what I love. And it all was kind of seamlessly came together. And I did just really what I thought was a strong set that didn't embarrass anybody. I basically did my son's life through stand-up. I did all the bits I've ever done about my son back to back. It was like 20 minutes of my set was kind of dedicated to my son, and I pointed him out in the crowd. He was sitting in the back row with his back against the wall, and I made him stand up, and then I did all the jokes. And it was just really special. It was really fun. So, sold all my pins after the show. Kyle Spencer came out, the guy that does a lot of my social media banners, and met him and his lovely girlfriend or wife. God, do it, Kyle. Marry that woman. Brendan O'Malley was there. He happened to be in town. His daughter was there for... she's going to the school as well. And so I introduced them, and I think that my son is going to try to help her get an internship at the college radio station. So pay it all forward. But he was a producer on an MTV game show that I hosted many years ago. And he's a great dude. Adam Friedman came down. He was in town. His daughter goes to college in Chicago. So he did a spot. He's a comedian friend of mine. He's also a big producer. And he did a spot on the show. He was hilarious. And then the next day, we just basically went to my son's apartment with his roommates. I think they smoked a little weed before we got there. And we watched the Giants win, which was great. Flew home. Got the car from short-term parking. It was $260 to park the car for 3 days, and drove home and watched the final episode of Dahmer. So anyway, it was a great trip. Thank you to the Den Theater. Thank you, Chicago. Can't wait to do it again. A couple emails. This is from Zach. Hey, Grapefruit. Been watching a lot of old Comedy Central Presents episodes on the Paramount Plus streaming app, including yours from 1999. And I just want to say you were freaking adorable. Time is a motherfucker. That is all. Thanks for still being alive and funny. Yep. I was a handsome motherfucker. I had a full head of hair. I had a wispy. I wore it like a mullet. Oh, it was nice. I had smooth skin around my eyes. Oh, you should have seen it. Craig Goodette says, TJ Miller was great. I was dying every time he says Fitzdog. That might have to become part of the show, even when TJ's not on. I might have to come up with a segment where I Fitzdog people. And maybe every guest gets Fitzdogged at some point. Huh? I like it. Kay from Washington. Let me save this one because this is a long one and I want to address it fully. And we'll save this overheard because we're getting deep into the show and I want you guys to hear this interview with my guest. Don't forget, premium memberships are available. You can get close to 1,000 old Fitzdog radio episodes at your very ear tips. For, I think it's like $19 a year or something. You can support the show. Do us a solid, do yourself a solid. Listen to some old episodes of Sarah Silverman and Jimmy Kimmel and Louis C.K. and Zach Galifianakis and John Hamm and Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys and Carl Reiner. Just on and on. Great, been a great ride for 13 years. You can listen to it all. Go to fitzdog.com. You can also pick up your Grapefruit Simmons t-shirts there. Tour dates coming up. San Francisco Punchline, November 3rd through the 5th. My second favorite club in the country. Side Splitters in Tampa, November 17th through the 19th. Oklahoma City, December 1st at the Rodeo Cinema. And then Fort Worth, Texas, December 2nd and 3rd at Hyenas. Fitzdog.com for all your ticketing desires. My guest today. I got this guy. I tracked him down because there's a show that he does called This Fool that's on Hulu that is a must-watch. Chris Estrada is the other guy on the show, and it's just a really cool, simple, funny show. And Frankie is just a really good actor, and he's really good in it. So I was psyched to have him come on. He's got a podcast called the Frankie Quinones. I always say his name wrong. Quinones Show. Will Ferrell produces it, and he's got a special on HBO called Super Homies. You're going to love the podcast. I had a blast doing it with him. Here is my guest, Frankie Quinones. Fitzdog Radio is proud to welcome to the podcast a gentleman I've seen kicking around the clubs, and I fucking love his new TV show. Frankie Quinones, welcome.
Hey, what's up, Fitzdog? Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. We haven't really met that much, though, have we?
No, we crossed paths a couple times. Like I said, the first time I saw you was, it must have been at least a decade ago, probably at the Punchline in San Francisco.
Back when I still had it, right?
Yeah, no, you still got it, baby. Come on.
Yeah, that's a good place to. That's where you started, San Francisco.
Yeah. Just started doing open mics there. The Brainwash Cafe was the first place I ever did stand up.
Yeah.
And then, worked my way into the club, the punchline, and then,
Molly take care of you over there?
Yeah.
Isn't she the greatest?
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Molly.
Molly Schmenk. Oh, my God. I've known her for 20-something years. She's a great supporter of young talent at that club. She's developed so many comedic voices out of there over the years. And it's just a great scene. You're surrounded by other good comics. It makes you better.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was good. Great place to get started and, hone your craft and stuff like that. Yeah.
But where'd you grow up?
Down here, actually. I was born in San Fernando.
Yeah.
But I mostly grew up in Ventura County, so like about an hour north.
Yeah.
And then I spent almost 15 years in San Francisco. I've been back here for 10 years now. It's 10 years in August. Yeah.
So Ventura County's got like a pretty strong Latino population up there.
Yeah.
Oxnard,
especially
Ventura.
most of my family's from Oxnard. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Like my grandpa's from Mexico, Zacatecas, and him and his brothers came. They went to Pacoima first, but then my grandfather went to Oxnard because of all the work that was there for the agriculture and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, we started out in agriculture.
Yeah, and then even my mom, we were like, Oxnard was like the strawberry capital of the world for I don't know how many years. So
right.
That was one of the things I would do every year was I would dance ballet folklorico, the Mexican folk dancing at the Strawberry Festival every year. Yeah.
What do you mean, like a group of people dance together?
Well, I was in a group like ballet folklorico regional of Oxnard, and so I danced. Dude, it was probably like 10 years. I danced from when I was like 12 all the way till I was like, I don't know. I think I was almost 19. I was just like
salsa?
No. It's like Mexican folk dancing. So you have like kind of the famous one is from the state of Jalisco, which is the full mariachi suit, and you have the boots with the nails in it, the hands behind your back, like
okay,
that's
badass.
So it was cool. So every or whatever, like Cinco de Mayo, whatever, even though that's an American holiday, we would like do all the parades in LA. We would dance for LA Galaxy halftime shows at the Rose Bowl, and then we would do like weddings and quinceañeras and stuff like that. Yeah. And
you had the full like the hat with the studded jacket and the boots.
I got a picture. I guess it's not audio, but yeah, I took like my parents had me take my senior pictures like in the suit.
Damn.
They're like, for your grandpa, do it. And I'm like, I don't want to do it. But as soon as the camera turned on, I'm like that, with the hat and everything. I'm like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, you can't not feel like a badass wearing that outfit.
Right,
you shitting me? There's a reason why Michael Jackson was stealing that look.
Oh yeah, dude. All this we had like the metal, buckling on the side and everything. Right. Oh man, yeah. Definitely made my legs stronger.
Wait, so was your grandfather? Was he like picking fruit?
He did all kinds of stuff, man. But yeah, he was working. He picked some fruit for a while. Then he was like working in like a warehouse, where they were like, loading produce onto like trains and stuff like that, because the train goes right through Oxnard right there.
Yeah.
And then my dad did that for a while. I packed lemons on trains for a long time. And then my mom was actually would pick strawberries because it was one of the jobs you could do in the area without a work permit, because she grew up like in the project, so they didn't have any money. So she was like, what can I do for money? She couldn't get a job anywhere because she was too young. Right. They're like, hey, if you get on this bus that picks you up in the corner at 5 a.m., you can go pick strawberries, and they just pay you by the basket by the end of the day.
Pay you cash, that's it.
So she was out there picking strawberries.
Damn. That's wild.
Yeah.
Dude, your podcast with them was so goddamn entertaining.
Oh, dude, you listened to that?
Oh, dude, I loved it. It was like... I mean, your mom's just got I see where you get your laugh from. You got your mom's laugh. She sounds like she's gonna have a fucking asthma attack when you really get her going.
Like Shaggy the dog.
Yeah, but the stories about them dating when they were
were they
15, 16 years old?
Yeah, my dad was 16, borrowed his sister's car, and my mom was 14. They went on their first date, and they were just on and off. They were both born here, and but they diehard like old school funk fans, music fans, and stand up comedy fans. Yeah, they would go.
Who were they into when they were young?
Oh,
Freddie Prinze.
Yeah, they loved Freddie Prinze. Actually, my mom really loved Louie Anderson. And she has some great stories of them. So she was like, yeah, me when I would see that he'd be on the bill at like the Improv or the Comedy Store, me and your dad would go, and we would drink in the parking lot, go in and order our sodas for our 2-drink minimum.
Yeah.
And she's all, we would try to sneak into other shows after,
Oh, yeah?
just to see who's going to be there. Oh my gosh, And my dad was like, yeah, mijo, we like the comedy, like my dad's real old school. So he would driving his lowrider car all the way to the Improv or to the comedy store.
Your uncle the president of a lowrider club or something? Or
at my Nino, which is my dad's best friend.
Yeah.
He baptized me, so he was like, he's like a second father kind of.
Yeah.
And he was president of Viejitos Car Club for like, I think it's 33 years it was.
Yeah.
So it was just like
those old Bel Airs and those.
Yeah, dude. He has to this day he has a 37 Plymouth. It's like it's kind of like those old mobster cars, that kind of like the hatchback look in the back, like from like and it's like 2-tone, got cream color and like a greenish color, and he's got like the lighting inside is all redone. They look like little haunted mansion lighting. It's really cool, man. Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw some nice cars. I watched some of your videos. There's one where you're trying to get them to let you ride with them, but you've got a shitty old car with an eagle on the hood. And those were some nice cars there. They look like an Impala and I forget what the other one was.
Yeah, that was another Plymouth too. I think that was like a 39. That's my buddy Esteban Oreo, who's a legendary LA photographer. Yeah, those were both his cars actually.
Oh yeah?
And our buddy Kenny's shop. Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. So that's so weird. So your parents started out going to the comedy. Do you go to the Comedy Store at all? I mean,
yeah. I was just
how
there,
many years before you were performing there, and your parents are going on their early dates there? That's
I know.
wild.
It's so crazy, man.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I performed at the Improv, and that was like the first club here in LA that put me up. It was a long time ago, but I remember I was just like, it was really exciting for them, because they were like, Jesus, we still go on dates here.
Yeah.
And then now we're watching our son. So it's pretty cool. I'm grateful that I know not everybody has that kind of support where they're actually comedy fans and into it, and especially in my community. And my mom and dad were just always really supportive. Yeah. So it's cool.
You could. I mean, they love to laugh. They love humor. It's just like so much a part of their being. Like, I've gotten to know the LA Latino community pretty well from both my kids went to a Spanish immersion school.
Oh, really?
In Santa Monica. So they're both fluent. They're both in college. They're both in college now. Yeah, my son just went to Cuba for 3 weeks, and he's gonna when he graduates, he's gonna move to South America and try to get a job somewhere down there. Playing soccer on all Latino teams where they coached in Spanish. That's when you knew, like when he was just starting out. Sometimes we'd play a team and the coach was yelling shit out. He was coaching in Spanish. We're like, oh, we're losing this one. Yeah, we're
You're like, no shot. Yeah.
But then he got bigger and he joined the Strikers, and they were all Spanish speaking. And
nice.
And they won the league. They were they were so good. But we got to be very close to his coach, because my wife was the manager of the team for like 10 years, and we went to all the quinceañeras and all that. It's an amazing culture. The Latino culture in Los Angeles is so filled with laughter and loyalty and family. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And suppression. No, just kidding. No. It's it's beautiful, man. Very colorful culture. But that definitely loyalty and like just amongst family. It's like, oh man. Yeah. We have big families too, so it's like,
At the sense of humor. The coach's mother. She was dying of cancer, and she was a huge George Lopez fan. So I did. So I was doing a spot on his show, and so I invited their whole family up backstage, and they met George, and George talked to them for 45 minutes.
Oh man!
And it was like the highlight of her life, and she died like a couple months later. But it was she was so thrilled that she got to meet him.
George is cool like that, man.
Do you know George?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How'd you get to know him?
Oh man, we worked on a film together called El Chicano, which was directed by a mutual friend of ours, Ben Bray Hernandez, and Joe Carnahan was also a producer on it. And Joe Carnahan and Ben Hernandez called me one night, and they were like just watching my videos, and they were drinking like Japanese whiskey all drunk. They're like, we love you. And I was like, oh,
that's awesome.
So I was like excited, and then they go, man, we're making this film, and we think we got a role for you. And George was one of the leads in it. And so that's how we like first crossed paths. Obviously, I'm like, when I saw his Why You Crying special, I remember like jumping up and down in the living room by myself. Like every bit just nailed it.
Yeah.
And he, you know, it was like inspiring. But so I was very like, oh, hey, what's up, George? You know, but then you know, we ended up hanging out at the premiere of that film. And then after that, we kind of sort of stayed in touch. And then we had a lot of mutual friends just in the LA area, you know, like, and that we kept kind of, you know, crossing paths because of that reason. We had more and more mutual friends. And then he invited me to his house for like a party that he had. And it was like Anthony Anderson's birthday and all these other people. And then ever since then, we just kind of been in touch. I've been to his house a handful of times now.
Awesome.
He just had me on his podcast actually just recently.
Oh, yeah?
And so it was good. You know, he's giving me some helpful pointers and he gave me some, you know, mentor help and stuff like that. But yeah, he's definitely been a big inspiration, paved the way in a lot of ways, you know.
That's amazing. He's one of the most underrated comedians. When people talk about the best comedians performing today, it's always talk about Chappelle and Burr and all that stuff.
Yeah.
George Lopez is one of the strongest people to ever do stand-up comedy, consistently turning in specials that are fucking laugh out loud fun.
Yep.
He understands how to construct a joke. He knows how to tell a story. He's amazing.
Yeah. He's just super polished veteran, man.
Yeah.
Well, you are too, man.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. Oh, shit. 32 years I've been doing this shit. So
yeah.
What made you start up in San Francisco?
You know, I always kind of knew I wanted to do it, especially with my mom and dad always having stand-up on. I mean, even when I was little, man, they were letting me watch Eddie Murphy.
Oh, really?
Pryor.
Yeah.
You know, Paul Rodriguez was the first person I saw that looked like me on there.
Who was that?
Paul Rodriguez.
Oh, yeah.
And then, and I was like, oh, dude, this guy looks like me, and da-da-da. But, you know, they were letting me watch George Carlin even, and da-da-da. And I remember even as a young kid, like watching, you know, because obviously George Carlin, he has like these layers of intelligence, like where he's just like speaking almost, but there's still humor in there. And I remember even as a kid being like, he was like making me think about shit, you know?
Yeah.
And my mom and dad were fans of that too. And they, you know, they're from like, you know, they're Latinos from the hood and the projects, and they were to be like, oh man, this guy knows what's up and he's funny, you know, like it was just like fascinating for me to see that, like, damn, when you got it like that, like you can touch everybody, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so I saw just get them through tough times. But anyways, I started performing for them. I got a sprinkler head out of my dad's work truck, and I would like start doing little bits for them, like as a kid, you know. And I would even put their clothes on, my dad's clothes on, my mom's clothes on, whatever. Try to do characters because we'd be watching, you know, all that stuff. And then so I was like, man, I want to do this. And I was always like class clown, always. And then I got into hip hop, and I was doing like underground hip hop, like Socially Conscious. Hey, we rocking this, you know, that kind of shit.
Oh, really?
And I started doing that at a young age. And I was always recording tapes on audio cassette, like pretending to be a morning radio DJ. That's what I wanted to do. And then I got into, got into the hip hop thing. And so we were doing shows, and so I was already kind of used to being on stage, you know. But with that, you have like your co-MC and the DJ and the music to kind of, you know, kind of lean on or whatever.
Right.
And then so I kept talking about it to my friends. Man, I want to try stand up. You know, I want to try stand up. And one day my buddy was like, that I went to school with at San Francisco State. He's like a cousin of mine, actually. Danny was did something there. He's got into audio because we were both doing broadcasting and media communications at San Francisco State. And he's like, hey man, I did audio for this guy. He did stand up at this like laundromat. And then and he's like, but it was cool. They had like a good crowd. And he's like, you should try it there. And I was like, what? So I'm like, all right, fuck it, man. I'll do it. Like I'm down, you know. And at the time I was working at doing shipping and receiving, like, you know, doing pallets and shit like that up in the Bay.
Yeah.
And I remember, I was like, all right, I'm going to do it. And then one day I get off work and I'm nervous as hell. I'm like going through my little 5 minutes of diarrhea and sex jokes in my head, you know.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah. You know, that low hanging fruit, man. And then I drove into the city after work because I work just outside of the city. And then, you know, I'm like, you got to sign up early, but I didn't get there on time. So I sign up. So the crowd kind of, I'm there for like 3 hours or whatever it is. There's like 6 people left, and I did my first set,
At a laundromat. That was your first set.
Yeah.
No shit.
And the only people that were there because they were waiting for their clothes to dry or whatever. Yeah.
The rinse cycle crowd. Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time. But I got some laughs, So I was like, oh man, and even.
Was that it? Did you feel bit?
Yeah,
you got the bug. That was it
for sure. I was like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
And then that's the only place I was doing it for a while, just going once a week to the Brainwash on Thursday nights. And I was having to take like 4 shots before going. I was so nervous.
Yeah.
And then finally, then I got my first paid gig for $20 and 2 free drinks. And then I was like, oh, here we go, baby.
Yeah.
And then obviously I was like, I'm always like a, whatever, I try to always stay humble and all that stuff. But in my head at the time, I was like, oh man, this is it. This is what you're here for. It's going to happen.
Oh, really?
And I was like, I was just, but I was young.
No,
and
but it seems like your love for stand-up is very organic. It comes through in everything you do, whether it's the TV show, the characters you do on YouTube, or your podcast. Like you're very joyful in your comedy. It's not mean-spirited, and but it's real. And it's like, I think you're an ambassador of your culture in the same way that Paul Rodriguez and George Lopez are. I mean, you are showing people something that they don't know, which is an amazing thing in stand-up.
Oh, right on, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. So let's talk about the show. This Fool. It's I first got exposed to it from my kids, and
oh really?
They fucking love it.
Baby.
My son's watched it twice.
He's
already watched it twice. It just is like it's so I don't know. It's just like the dynamic I think between you and your cousin is just it's classic sitcom, total opposites.
Odd couple.
Done. But he's so good. I'm trying to remember his name.
Chris Estrada? Yeah,
Chris Estrada.
And he plays Julio. Yeah,
and he's a good stand-up too. I've seen him.
Oh, he's great, man.
Yeah, we just did a spot at the West Side Comedy Club together. But Jonathan Groff, I know, is a showrunner. Do you know him?
Oh yeah.
So he was a guy I started with in Boston, and I know he
really.
Yeah.
Oh,
we started together.
Yeah,
back in like 1989. We started out together back in Boston.
Wow. Oh man, I can't wait to mention that too.
Yeah. And and then the guys from corporate, Matt
Engelbretson, Pat Bishop, and Jake Weissman.
Yeah, you got a good crew there. Really good crew.
Yeah, I've known those guys. I've known Matt, Pat, and Jake. I've known for at least probably 13 years, 12, maybe like 12 years. Yeah.
Were you on corporate?
And I did a little cameo on there on one episode.
Yeah.
And then Chris, I've known it'd be 10 years at the end of this year.
Wow.
Chris was touring with me as my opener after, I had the Cholo Fit and the character stuff go viral, so I was able to do some weekends of my own in certain cities, and he was on the road with me. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so, it was cool. He started working on that show. It was Pat and those guys that approached Chris and were like, hey, just interested in, because you've seen Chris do stand up, even if you see him do 10 minutes, especially back then years ago. You could see a show in there,
Yeah.
And those guys, luckily they saw it, and then Chris is like, he's like an old soul, and even I met him like during his first year that he started stand up, but he was such a student already, whatever. He had like this old soul kind of vibe, and he really does his research, and he has like tremendous work ethic. He was just
is that right?
Yeah, I mean, even when we were on the road together, he's just like in the hotel lobby on his laptop, writing, working, whether it's jokes or just starting to work on this Fool.
Yeah.
As soon as the show's over, he's going back to the hotel room to do more writing. He's that guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you got to watch out for that guy.
Yeah.
That guy's going to pull ahead of you every time.
Every time.
I swear to God, I got 2 kids that have massive amounts of potential and not a lot of rubber hitting the road. They think the potential is going to get them there, and it's like, no, it's the motherfucker that is staying late at work and is like taking his downtime to focus on what that's what succeeds in this world. And there's a vulnerability that he has that really works on the show, because your character's so tough, but he's also got a toughness underneath that comes out. And when it comes out, that's when it really pops. When you guys are going head to head, that's when the show really pops, because you're not expecting that from him. expecting it from you.
Right.
So if people don't know the show, it's basically you've just gotten out of jail, and we're saying that you were in there for what,
8 years?
8 years. And so you come out, and now he's running a thing called Hugs Not
Thugs.
Hugs Not Thugs.
Self-help rehabilitation. Center,
which is a great setting, and then and so it's a situation where it's like a behavioral rehab kind of a place for felons and gang members, and so you come in there and you're the cut up, you're the class clown, and he's trying to keep things rolling, but the stakes are you can't stay in his house unless you stay in this program.
Right. So exactly, he convinces my tia, his mom, that has to be the case. Like either I got to go there or find a place to live.
Right.
So I'm like, you motherfucker.
Yeah. So what's the reception? What kind of reception has the show gotten? It's been out since August.
Yeah, it's been good, man. I mean, critically, it's been, all the reviews have been great. I think it's still at 100% on Rotten Tomatoes.
No shit.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, obviously, Rolling Stone magazine, they all say the greatest things about it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so that part's been great. And the energy around town too. And just even I'm back on the road now and traveling. And it's just like, there's even kids coming up to me in like random places. I'm like, hey, your mom lets you watch this shit.
Really?
But they're like, oh, can I take a picture? So it feels good. There's like a good energy around it. So yeah, hopefully it has some legs on it and goes.
You waiting to hear if there's a second season?
Yeah, I don't know how much I can say, but I know it's gonna happen. I think they're just working, fine tuning some details, but the writing process has already started. The writing started. It's been about 6 weeks already. Yeah. So and we got there's some good stuff in there. I just chime in. They're in there every day. I'm like touring and doing all this other stuff, but it's looking good, man.
My favorite episode is when you get in a beef with this old guy who's like your nemesis, and then you guys decide you're going to have a gang fight, and you both try to line up all your old gang members, and they're either dead or they found religion, or and so you show up with this 14-year-old gay boy who loves West Side Story, and he wants to bring a knife to the gunfight. Yeah. And then the other guy shows up with his grandfather, who's like, he's got like dementia, and he's on a walker. That's the fun. I gave away the whole episode, but it's just, it's really strong. How are your parents reacting to all of it?
Oh man,
I mean, because you've been having some success for a few years now, but this is a breakthrough moment for you.
For sure. Yeah, 2017 was when. I was literally delivering a sandwich. I'm in my mid-30s too, so it's like, almost late to mid-30s, and so I was still like, chasing that dream. And my mom and dad are kind of like, you might want to think about a real job, and then, but then me and some friends sold a show to TBS called my roommate, my friend. It was called the Dress Up Gang. They changed it to the Dress Up Gang, which is a sketch group. And then that same, like a month after that happened, Cholo Fit went viral, and then which is a character work, Creeper's a character, and that went viral. So I was able to, ever since then, that's all I've been doing for money is comedy. So that was like a game changer for me, but then I kind of just been in that lane.
Wait, so how does that work? When you get a character like Creeper that goes viral, I mean, does that monetize immediately, or are you saying the notoriety from that lets you make money in other ways?
Yeah. The notoriety for that was just like I was able to sell tickets and get weekends at clubs. Right. And so I was able to just pay all my bills and make a living from then on.
Because you got like a million hits on some of these videos. Does that?
Yeah.
Does that translate to money?
It does when you do stand up and you tour,
but not from YouTube. The YouTube money
YouTube money is,
that's bullshit. I mean, for a million views, you should be getting some real checks.
For $1 million, I think even just for $1 million, you maybe get like a few grand or something.
Yeah,
it's not crazy.
I mean, let me tell you something. The fucking Tonight Show doesn't get 1 million viewers. And they're paying 14 writers, an executive producer, a union camera crew, a studio, an audience.
Right. It's a good point. Yeah.
And you're just handing them free content, and they're giving you a few grand for the same fucking ratings that Jimmy Fallon just got. It doesn't make any sense.
You're right, man. God damn it.
Well, it's because comedians were all scrappers, and if we all got our shit together, we would say, all right, if you want my podcast, you got to pay for it. Nobody is putting it on Apple Podcasts for free anymore. Well, your podcast is it's on iHeartRadio. It's very, very corporate. It's
it's Will Ferrell's company, the big money players, but through the iHeart umbrella.
It doesn't feel like a grassroots podcast. Yeah. You got a lot of producers on that. You got musical stings and fucking beds of music and great editing. I mean, this thing is professional.
Right.
This isn't like sitting in my fucking little office shooting the shit.
But I don't even have an office like this, man. Get one.
It's not bad, right?
Yeah, it's cool, man.
Yeah, it keeps me out of the house. So, all right. So, getting back to your family. So how are they feeling about this? Are they just like?
Oh yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. It was So I was on the road touring. They were already, they were like, okay. They were just happy that I was able to.
You weren't living at home.
Pay my bills and get a job. No, I was crashing with them every now and then, but I was couch surfing, man. I was sleeping on friends' couches, and then, but I would. Staying with them though, it was like my dad would wake me up 6 in the morning. Hey, what are you doing today? What are you doing today, mijo? Huh? What are you gonna do today?
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, Dad, like, damn, and I'm like, I'm like 37, like, so I'm like, I can't do this anymore, man. So, but luckily that ended up happening, and then I was kind of like waiting for the next thing to happen. Like, not, I was obviously grateful to be able to make a living doing comedy, but you're on that road grind, how that can be. And you're like, and then this show came about. And and then it got picked up, and then we go, and then that was like the next like game changer for me. And so, but it wasn't just that; it was like the show that it is. It's like so authentic. It kind of like just nailed it. Like for us, it was like even if I wasn't in it, I'd be like, damn, this is like a breath of fresh air. It's like finally, like bam, somebody nailed it. I'm always happy to see brown faces on TV and stuff like that, but sometimes it feels rushed, or they're forcing something, or they kind of miss the mark a little somehow. Mm-hmm. For this one, I feel like every detail is paid attention to, or it just feels authentic. Like, yes, that's how we do it.
How do you think that happened? Because I mean, Jonathan Groff is the whitest, preppiest guy I've ever met. And Matt and what's his name are the same. So exactly. How did it stay grounded in a true Latino voice?
Well, to credit to those dudes, it was important to them too, so they were constantly checking in about, even while being on the set, they would give notes, but hey, does that, da-da-da.
Oh, they check with the actors.
Yeah, or they'd be like, they would check with Chris or even myself, or like, hey, does this feel good? And Chris was very like, I don't want this to be, I don't want this to turn into this watered down thing. Like, it's got to be down to the detail. Even the wardrobe, because that was one thing I always mention is like, dang, when you see like cholos or like stuff, or people that are in LA Latino neighborhoods on TV, like even the wardrobe, I'm like, we don't wear that. We don't wear that shit. So Chris's sister did the wardrobe on the show.
Oh, had she done that before?
Yeah. She works for Kimmel actually, but this gave her an opportunity, because they grew up in South Central. It was like, she was like, boom, boom, here's all the spots. And she would, I sent her clothing companies for my homies and da-da-da. And we were just able to get it all dialed in, where it's like, yep, there it is, like where you just made it feel really grounded,
That's amazing.
And so it allowed us to just, get away with so much, and and the dialogue being funny. It's like, oh man, because people were like, yeah, these are real people right here.
Right.
But yeah, so that was one thing. My mom is like, she was like blowing me up in Texas. Fucking finally, we fucking did it. You did it. Fuck yeah. Like she's just.
Oh, that's great.
So her and my dad just got that shit on repeat. Like they keep watching episodes over and over.
Yeah. Yeah, they can't wait for the next season. My son can't wait for the next, and my daughter. They both love it. They turn me on to it. But I think your tickets punched, my friend. I mean, your chops really come through. I think you're going to work a lot. I mean, no matter what happens with this show, I can see people just sticking you in a film if they need to punch up a scene, they need some laughs. Like, you're going to be the guy.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Just don't stop doing stand-up. That's the girl that brought you to the dance.
Oh, baby, that's my first love, man.
Yeah,
come on.
Right.
It's so raw,
Yeah.
It's just the crowd, you and the mic. They're like, what do you got? Like, okay, let's go.
Right.
So.
And are you drawing crowds that are Latino, or are they mixed, or what?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was mostly just, my people and stuff like that. But now, man, it's the crowds are getting,
a little whiter.
I don't want to say it, Greg, but yeah. There's more white people coming, man, and I love that,
Because I think that's the opposite of George Lopez. His crowds used to be all white, and then I think he started to go deeper into his Latino side, and he started to draw more Latino crowds.
Right, yeah. I know I'm watching his earlier stuff, he was doing like, all these like impressions and stuff like that. And then he just started telling stories about who he was.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an interesting interview where he's like, he said Chris Rock like told him, he's like, man, love you, George, love you, but I don't know who you are. Like, da-da-da. And then he said that's when he started writing material about how he grew up and stuff like that.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, shit, crazy, because you watch his old stuff, he's doing like Rodney Dangerfield impersonations and stuff like that. And you could see that influence too when he does the eyes. Like George does that, and I'm like, oh shit, that's so dope.
That's hilarious.
But yeah. I just was in Portland this past weekend at Helium, and we sold out all the shows. And
amazing!
And,
that's a great club.
Great club, man.
Yeah.
And there was obviously there's a lot of white people in Portland, but it was cool to just see them come out to the shows. And all different. And you got a lot of black people, Asians, everybody, and they're coming in. They want to do the squat, the photos after. They're hanging out after to take photos. It's just like, hell yeah. Like bringing people together has always been my thing. And my mom and dad's thing, they were always barbecuing. Tell whoever to come, like kind of just like bringing that good energy, those good vibes.
Yeah. You selling that merch after the shows?
Yeah. I got to sell that merch.
What are you selling?
I stay hustling, baby.
Yeah, you got to hustle.
T-shirts, I'm going to start selling bandanas too. I got little pins too, but mostly T-shirts, man, yeah.
Oh, you got the pins? I got the pins.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, the pins are the best.
Yeah, because they're easy to travel with, man.
And they're
cool for people, yeah.
People love them. How much you selling them for?
I sell them for $10.
That's what I do.
Yeah. So people are like, dude, you should charge 20, but I'm like, when I order enough of them, you get them for reasonable.
You just got to wait for them to get shipped from China.
Yeah, exactly. They come on that slow boat, man. Right now, I'm waiting on, there's that company Homies.
Yeah.
As a kid, you put the quarter in the thing and you get, it's kind of a grab bag. You see which one you're gonna get. There's little figurines or little homies, like ones are like that, and ones are buff, one's a cook, but they're making a creeper one. And so I'm gonna start selling those at shows. Those would be easier to travel. They're like that, but they come in the plastic, Hot Wheels packaging kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What about cool. Puffy? What do you think about Puffy?
Puffy?
Yeah.
The
Gabriel Iglesias.
Oh, Fluffy.
Yeah.
What
did I call
Daddy?
him? Puffy?
Yeah. I was like, well, he's the hip hop community appreciates him, and
I can't really speak to
Fluffy. Oh man, he's great.
Yeah.
I was just at his compound last Tuesday. Actually, we shot a little something to help. He hired a personal trainer, Creeper, to help him get ready for his tour to promote his special that he filmed at Dodger Stadium. So
dude, that was crazy. Not just one night. Didn't he do like 2 nights at Dodger
crazy,
Stadium?
Dude. I mean, like,
dude.
And then so yeah. So now he's touring to promote that. And so we just went and shot a little video where I'm kind of doing workouts with him and stuff. And, I mean, he couldn't be a nicer guy, man.
Nicest guy.
It's like, just so cool. And just like, and I'm like, I met him a handful of times, but this time we're like filming something together. I'm like, still like, you meet a lot of people in this industry. You're like, okay, they're just people, But like him, I'm like, Jesus, he's just like, this guy's doing arenas like around the world, man. It's like crazy. You see him like in Oslo, Norway, and it's just like packed out arenas. It is just like his compound too. He's got all his close family there working for him. And
I know he talk about selling merch. That guy moves some merch.
Dude, he's got forklifts and like pallets of merch in his compound.
Really?
There's like like moving. Oh, those are the hoodies over there, and here's like it's like what the
and
fuck?
I'm putting a plastic bag of pins in my carry-on.
Exactly, man. I'm like, oh man, I'm out of extra larges, and he's like moving pallets and shit.
Do you take selfies? Yeah, I'll take selfies. I'm standing. Nobody's fucking talking to me. I'll take a selfie with you. Can I get a ride home? Can I get a ride to the fucking hotel? Oh, that's hilarious. So you work in the Improv, you work in the Comedy Store, you doing the Laugh Factory.
Yeah.
Just banging around.
I love all. I would say the Improv is like pretty much home base, but I love the Laugh Factory. I love the store too. But the Laugh, it's so fun getting to that, where. Especially when you got a show out, like you get people are hitting you up more or the clubs are like, hey, you available this night? You're available. You send out your little avails email, and I'm getting a response every week. And if I'm in town, and I'm like, oh shit, let's go, baby.
Yeah.
And then I think was it last Tuesday we did Ruben's Ruby Tuesdays show at the Laugh Factory, and like Russell Peters and like Joe Coy popped in, and I was on the lineup, and then. I think, and then at the improv, it was like Ali Wong, and then myself went on, which is, Ali was right there at the Brainwash at the same time I was. She started a few years before me, but it's
in
just
San Francisco?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So it's so cool just seeing, all these people that like, oh man, like you did it. I mean, she's obviously on a whole nother level, but it's just like cool. And then just being able to be on shows with guys like that. Yeah. It's like, Russell and Joe, they just go on and they're just doing crowd work for like 20 minutes and destroying, the room. It's just like, you motherfuckers, hell yeah, dude. Like that's just a whole nother level. Like just going up there like, all right, let's see what happens. And then just crushing.
Yeah. Right.
It's like, gosh, damn.
I know. So I wanted to ask you my standard questions. I got my standard questions on, Fitzdog Radio. These are called the Fitzdog 5.
All right, Fitzdog 5
questions. You got to answer them. How would you do in prison?
Ooh, man. I mean, I would just, I don't know, man. I would, you got to find a way to survive. But first thing I would do is hit up all my family and everything and be like, hey. I think I would do all right. Like if it's like
you'd
now,
ask your family, like, do they know anybody inside? They can watch out for me. You mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I know for a fact there's people in there.
Some people in there. You can network.
Yeah. So I would try to network. Make people laugh, do the thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if you have money and you're in prison, you're gonna be all right because you could pay for anything. It's like protection, drugs, whatever you want, homie.
Really?
But most dudes in there don't have money, so it's like.
So how does the money change hands in a prison?
Oof. I mean, I don't know. Thankfully, I've never been in prison, but I know that that it's a thing. Like if you have money yourself or you have people supplying you with money, then you could pay for anything in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get man. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah. Right.
Because I commit crimes.
Yeah, I know you do, Greg. But I don't want to say any out loud. I know we're on camera right now, but I know out here around town, the streets don't lie, Greg. Right. When Fitzdog's around, you better hide your girl, hide your wallet, playboy.
When you see that Toyota Prius pull up, there's trouble. With that Elton John thumping out the windows. All right, so here's the second question. Have you ever borrowed a lot of money?
Yes.
From who?
Whew. I mean, it was a lot of money to me at the time, but I mean, friends, family, my friend Daniel Coda. I'll say his name, it's all good.
So this is like you were getting to the point where you couldn't pay the rent.
Oh yeah. I would just say, I just need help to get by. I'll pay you back, I promise, Yeah. And one of my best friends I grew up with, he was the dude that you never saw with a book in school, but he was always wearing Dickies and like the white tennies with the black laces, which kind of was like a gangster thing. And, his shirt always buttoned up, and never saw him with a book. And then you find out he was pulling like a 4.2 the whole time.
No shit.
Yeah, dude. And then straight out of high school, goes to UC Riverside, graduates in 4 years. He's like, I don't want to get a job yet. Like at the top, like in the honors, whatever, in UC Riverside. And then he's like, so he goes, I don't know, I guess I'll go to grad school. Maybe I'll go to law school. He goes to Loyola Law School here. Graduates in 2 years. Takes a bar exam, passes it the first try. He's like a licensed lawyer, like not even 24 years old yet. Wow. Nobody wanted to hire him because he looked so young. So he had to like try to grow a beard and like all this crazy shit. But yeah, so he was like, he helped me out a couple times, man, where I'm like, fuck, man, I'm about to get evicted or whatever, Yeah. He loaned me some money, but...
You paid him back?
Oh, yeah. Paid him back and some, baby. Now he loves sports, so I take him to Laker games or Dodger games. We sit right up front.
Yeah.
He's like, no, let me get the drink. No, man. Yeah, I got it,
Nice. That's awesome.
You had my back when I was on the couch,
Yeah. And you paid the parents back?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That feels good.
Oh yeah, man. Good. Yeah. It feels great.
Yeah, because they probably never expected it back. They probably figured, this stand-up comedy. What are you shitting me?
Yeah.
This guy's never gonna make any money. Have you ever not finished a set on stage?
Oof, I've gotten close, but I can't remember a time where I didn't finish.
You never bailed.
No, there's my worst set that I'll always take with me on stage every time.
What's that?
I was at this club up in the Bay, Tommy T's,
Sure.
Tommy T's.
Yeah.
And it was like, there was another headliner there, and, him and Tommy had kind of got into it. I think they're cool now, but that night, and this was like 10, 11 years ago, but so he was supposed to have his one last show Sunday. He's there Friday through Sunday or whatever the weekend was. And so they hit me up that day, and they were like, oh man, we need somebody to close the show, like da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it, and I go, and it's like there's this East Oakland OG. It's his birthday, right? And it's all his people in there. He's wearing the gator skin shoes, just looking fly. Mm-hmm. He was a really nice guy. But so I show up to the club, and they're like, this homegirl Sugar was hosting, and she's like, oh baby, this crowd is like, but in my head I was cocky, and I was like, oh, I got this, I got him. We got this. Uh-huh. And then I go up, and I had him for like the first 10 minutes, and then I used to do this bit about a gay gangster hip hop group. I was like, man, what if there was a gay gangster hip hop group, or they're like, gay but gangster, or even Thugs in the Hood are bumping. I'm like, these dudes are doing they're like that, but it's all good. Like, they got beats. And I had a character where I'll do raps for him, like Big Tuna would come out, call me Big Tuna. I'm gay as a motherfucker, and then, it's so stupid. I mean, mind you, this was like over a decade ago,
yeah.
But in Black or Latino rooms, we're like, notoriously homophobic communities. It would either go really good or it would just go okay, but it would never like, totally tank. Man, this crowd, I started doing that bit as soon as they just, and then once you lose them, it's so hard to get them back, right? And I wasn't experienced enough to get them back. So I'm just going through the rest of my jokes like a robot.
And this is halfway through your set?
Oh, yeah. 10 minutes in, Greg. And I have to do like 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Greg, man. When I tell you, I was like, I just tried to just get through the jokes in my head and get through the jokes. It was so silent in there. This one dude stood up out of his chair. Like, he gets up and he stands up and he goes, motherfucker, you ain't funny. And hikes his pants back up and sits down like, that had to be said, wow. And it was just crazy. And there was like these two...
How do you respond to that?
Dude, I just was like, just get through the jokes. Somehow, okay. And so anyway, I'm like, just get through the bits. And then these two older women were sitting up front. They looked like really nice people. And one of them's like, and the whole room could hear because it was so quiet. She's like, baby, you look scared. And I just, I was dead inside.
That's worse than somebody yelling, motherfucker, you're not funny.
Yeah, dude.
That's worse.
Everything that could have went wrong, Greg. I was just like, I was dead inside, man. I was like, just nerves and just this dagger in my heart. And I'm just like, and then just and then I finish, and there was like 3 people that maybe clapped, just sat there like, man.
And Tommy's sitting at the bar watching you?
Dude, well, he wasn't there that night, but oh man, I had the nerve to hang out after. Because I was like, I think subconsciously I was like, you gotta sit this all the way through.
Right.
And do it, man. This one dude walked by me, goes, practice, and just kept walking. And then G King, another comic who actually tours with me now, he was standing next to me, and another dude comes up to me and goes, you should have stayed up there. He was up right before me.
Yeah.
But the OG whose birthday was, he came, he's like, oh man, it wasn't that bad. Play, you get him next time. And I was like, all right. Dude, I couldn't even sleep that night though, man. I was emailing every veteran I knew, hey, here's what happened. They're all supportive, like, hey, this has to happen to you, man.
Dude, it's traumatic. It's traumatic.
Oh.
It like stays in your body for a while.
Yeah.
And no matter how many years you've been doing it, every time you walk on stage, that little memory is it's stuck back there, and it's waiting to come out. It's going, could happen.
Yep.
This could happen again tonight. And it is such a powerfully painful feeling. It's humiliation, I believe, is the worst human emotion you can feel. Extreme, acute humiliation.
Oh yeah.
It's a rejection from the pack. It's primal. It's rejection from, you're alone. You're just alone, and you're rejected.
Dude, I feel it right now.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. That's tough. So I'm glad you hung out afterwards. That's strong.
Oh,
That's what you got to do. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, it took me like 3 weeks to have like a normal set after that. I was going up there shaking, no matter what stage it was.
Yeah.
But I had to go through it, man. And
that's why they have a therapist at the Laugh Factory. You can go for free. Jamie makes it so you can go for free.
Yeah.
Did you ever do it?
No, I didn't. I go to therapy now, but
you do?
Yeah.
How long you been going?
Whew. It's been a while. I would say, or actually not that long. It's been just over a year. Maybe. Yeah. And I didn't even know all this shit. You know, it was like therapy was for white people, you know, growing up. And then you're like, no, it's for everybody. And then I started going and, you know, I got diagnosed with PTSD and all this crazy shit. And I'm like, oh, that's what the fuck's wrong. And, you know, you don't even think about that shit. You're
What's
just
the
like,
PTSD from?
Like childhood trauma, getting molested and shit like that. And, you know, and you don't, in our community, you don't talk about that shit. And now I'm talking on Fitzdog radio, so who gives a shit? But that's what made me more comfortable to be like, hey, fuck it, man.
Yeah.
I'm tired of just being like, no, don't talk about that. You know, you got to be a tough guy. Like,
yeah,
fuck that, man.
That's got to be very freeing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. I mean, that's real growth. I mean, it's funny. Like, I like in the show at one point, your cousin's like, man, I'm codependent, and that shit's serious. I was like, I love that. I love bringing, like, that kind of therapeutic mentality, like, everything he's going through into this community. Yeah. It's great. I mean, not that you'll get to child molestation in it, but, you know, but the idea of, you know, that growth that can happen.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
For sure, man.
All right, well, listen, man. I can't thank you enough for coming in. This is great.
Oh, thanks for having me, Greg.
We're going to, I'll see you in the clubs, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
And then you got some tour dates. Oh, first of all, don't forget, it's on HULU. It's called This Fool. And it's great. Chris Estrada and you together it's the new Odd Couple. And then dates coming up. You'll be at the Miami Improv October 7th and 8th. Las Vegas Laugh Factory October 21st. Through the 22nd. And then St. Louis Obispo, November 18th at the Fremont Theater. Look at you doing theaters now. And then Monterey doing the Golden State Theater. And then in New York at Sony Hall. Look at that. All right, brother. All right, man. Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
All right. We'll see you down the road.